Thanks to the groundbreaking work of the Kaminoans, we know that cloning can duplicate an individual from a single genetic strand.
Wow.
What my work explored was the hopes of combining multiple strands.
Why are they just letting them talk about this?
That's what I'm wondering.
War criminal.
This is like Nazis talking about their experiments in front of a bunch of the world.
It's quite fast.
Well, you know, there's a lot of subscribers to that kind of ideology. We're
That's
like,
true.
yes, we're listening. We're allowed to talk about this now.
Yeah.
We have freedom of speech in the New Republic now. They can't arrest us anymore.
That's right.
Of course.
Shall we?
Do you mind if I stay?
She's evil.
He relapsed.
She's like hardcore evil.
I still care about him.
Of course you do. Yes, you're welcome to stay.
I just don't understand how they gave them any of them second chances.
No, and I
Like,
don't understand how that guy clearly is like, I'll leave you alone with the ability to do whatever you want to him.
Yeah, well, yes, this moment for sure. But
Yeah.
they were fighting for Moff Gideon 10 years after the Battle of Endor.
Exactly.
Like, these were like true believers.
Yeah.
You
Fanatical.
can't say these people were just following orders. There was a new republic that they could have worked for, and they chose to work for the Empire.
They could have deserted the Empire anytime after its collapse.
They would have been welcomed with open arms.
Yeah.
No, these people had no second chances for these fuckers. Welcome back to New Rockstars, and are Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni on a crusade to right the wrongs of every past Star Wars movie? If so, dang Ferrick!
Ferrick, Eric, I was late, but I'm enthused. It's because I'm still so shooken up.
Understandably so. What an interesting episode.
Yeah.
And we might be in a sequel redemption process right now. It's a difficult feeling we're going through, but I think we can trust Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau to do everything they can to make us feel better about any era of Star Wars.
Absolutely.
This is The Break Room Presents Wookieeleaks. It's our weekly Mandalorian after show. And this week we are talking about Chapter 19, The Convert.
Yes.
This week we're back in our respective blue dungeons because I caught Tommy cranking the intensity of my mind flayer, and I don't want to be in the same room as him anymore. He's just so tricky.
He's a friend.
You are just trying to zap the more triggering parts of my memories.
That's
from
right.
my mind.
I want you to forget that one cartel show we had in 2014.
But you know what? That was the one show where I actually had a good show, Tom. All the other ones you had good shows. That's why you're like, oh, Erik had a fun second beat tag in there.
I only
Not
want you to
this
remember
one.
my glory.
I'm Erik Voss, and my Easter egg breakdown is coming tomorrow, God willing.
Ah!
But right now, I'm here discussing this episode with my best friend, Tommy Bechtold.
Yes.
Hi, Tommy.
Eric, so happy to see you. And I got to be honest, let's talk about what the fet happened in this episode.
Let's get into it.
Bo-Katan and Grogu are leaving the living waters. But first, Bo has a quick question for Din. Hey, when I was rescuing you or when you were falling to your death, did you see anything in those waters? And he's like, only redemption, baby. All I saw was sweet, sweet redemption. And Bo's like, sounds good. Let's get off this rock. And unfortunately, that plan is interrupted by TIE interceptors, which Din notes are a lot more effective than TIE fighters and difficult to take out. Yeah. So they flee to Calvala and they defeat the first wave of interceptors, Eric, but Din gets his N1 ship back only to watch the second wave of ship destroy that Kryze family castle.
So many family memories. That poor servant droid is somewhere in the rubble there.
I like to think he's okay, and maybe he's just going to live amongst the rubble with the little animals. But I also think the interesting thing is Bo mentions that she scrubbed off a lot of warlords in her time. So I'm a little curious as to what warlord is targeting her right now. You know, is it
right? And why now?
Yeah,
like why were they following her back from Mandalore?
Yes.
Like it was pretty convenient. If this is someone who had an axe to grind with her, they kind of chose right now to bomb her place.
I agree. So Bo, Din, Grogu, and R4-D5, who really had a tough go of it in his minimal scene time today, they escape into a mysterious hyperspace coordinates. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Dr. Pershing has joined the New Republic Amnesty Program and is giving a speech as part of his rehabilitation. And in that speech, he's explaining how they could just do the old things the Empire did to make the New Republic great again.
What a bizarre speech. Just a bizarre context of it. Like, I understand, like, big picture, they're trying to fill in the gaps of the sequel. And we'll talk about that more. But they're trying to, like, set up the sequel trilogy in the First Order.
Yeah.
But, like, was this part of his rehabilitation? Or just, like, was his parole officer like, okay, fine, you can do this? Like, I just think it's so weird that a New Republic who banned cloning would allow a former Nazi to come out in front of everyone and say, like, hey, but here's the eugenics stuff we were trying to do, actually, and how it was actually a good thing.
Right.
Like, I understand that his mom needed a heart transplant, but, like, does it need to be a TED Talk? Like,
also, my thing, Eric, is, and we'll get into it, is like, how much do you really believe any of these people anyway? Like, did his mom need a heart transplant? Is Katie O'Brien's character telling a true story?
He tugged his ear. He tugged his ear, which tells us that he's telling the truth. Like, he cannot tell a lie if he's tugging his ear.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like the most obvious poker tell in the world. Like, almost like wink, wink.
Yeah.
Finger on the nose.
When I tug my belly button, that's when I'm hungry. All right. Anyway, Katie O'Brien's character, who we're going to call comms officer until later in this recap, because that's her name until for now. She was the comms officer in Moff Gideon's ship. She watches on, kind of interested. Dr. Pershing arrives at the amnesty housing and chats with, about the good old days with some of the other recovering bad guys. And they're all like, man, don't you miss the food sometimes? Remember when we were just wiping out planets for no reason? Remember that giant Death Star destroyed Alderaan? That was a lot of fun. Anyway.
I mean, how bad are things in the New Republic if they're nostalgic for the Empire?
Right.
Like, everything that we've seen in Star Wars is that people who are, like, forced to fight for the Empire or, like, are drafted aren't having a good time. What they're talking about are these kits that have, like, these freeze-dried food in it.
Right.
You have to imagine at least being in, like, in whatever the Hong Kong of the universe, whatever we want to call Coruscant, the Singapore, the New York City, the London, like, the food's got to be at least a bit better than just getting, like, freeze-dried packs of biscuits.
Absolutely, but then again, we are currently living in a society that's like, Nixon and Reagan were actually pretty good presidents. Anyway.
I think that's what it is. I think it's all an indictment on the New Republic and just how bad the New Republic is.
So we see the doctor and the comms officer taking a stroll through George Lucas's mind, a.k.a. downtown Coruscant. This episode, to me, was the second time so far in this early season that we've seen them just be like, let's paint a picture that's going to make George Lucas go, oh boy, yoing. There were all sorts of CGI aliens. There were, I want to get this right, proton fizzes? Those little I'm gonna let me buy you a proton fizz, Eric. Let me take you out for a proton fizz sometime.
I think you and I were forced to drink as many proton fizzes as we could during Fitness Origins.
That's right.
We just had to just chug those down until we
that
threw up.
That was the plan, and that's why I still cry tears of blood. Now, at his job, Dr. Pershing has been demoted to just a simple archivist. The comms officer, Katie O'Brien once again, convinces Dr. Pershing to continue his research as they head to a shipyard to go get him some supplies to do so. Tong days, am I right, Eric? God, Tong days.
Yeah. I think I was very fascinated by this arc and specifically the twist of it when you go back to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Because now I'm just wondering, did the New Republic keep these Imperial shipyards there just to lure in old nostalgic war criminals so that they can, like, say, gotcha!
There's some
you're back in jail.
There's some New Republic Chris Harrison that's like, can you have a seat? Can I talk to you for a second? Dr. Pershing, can you have a seat? Do you understand what you were doing? Why do you got to pack some? Why you got a 6-pack of Mike Hard lemonade there? Anyway, some of those damn ticket droids are making things difficult. So Pershing and the comms have to leap off the train conveniently right onto a Star Destroyer with the things they need. I do love Star Wars.
Well, again, they leap off the train. Did these New Republic entrapping amnesty parole officers set up a mattress there just to be like, okay, and then you'll jump right here and you'll both survive? Our droids on the train will move real slow as to not arrest you. Like, it's just all very convenient.
Given how devious this comms officer, who now gets a name, Elia Kane, is, I have no doubt that this whole thing was elaborately planned by her. I mean, she seems as evil as Moff Gideon.
She's done this before.
Yeah.
She's got, like, the record in the new amnesty offices of people, of, like...
Yeah, she's like their Gestapo
parole violators.
Exactly. Yeah. She's Dog the Bounty Hunter for this. But, so anyway... She says her name's Elia Kane, but how could we possibly know that? Because everything she said has been revealed to be a lie, or at least something to set up Dr. Pershing, who is arrested. Now, the amnesty program plans on giving him just a light little mental reset until Kane turns the mind flare up to 11 and seems pretty pleased with herself doing it. She takes a little celebratory biscuit bite. She's like, hell yeah, I just, the only person who showed me kindness in the last 15 years is now scrambled eggs and tossed salad. Anyway, because he just got mind flazured. Meanwhile, Din and Bo with Grogu in tow, which is my is what I would call my children's book about the Mandalorian. Din and Bo with Grogu in tow arrive at Mando's old Mandalorian covert, and he has been redeemed, baby. Everybody celebrates except Paz Vizsla, who I assume looks like this under his helmet.
Yep. With a real, beautifully waxed mustache of Tate Fletcher, who I may be wrong, but I don't know if they've ever credited Jon Favreau as the voice, but here they just credited the entire character as Paz Vizsla, or as Tate Fletcher. Tate Fletcher's always been doing the physical performance of the character. I think at this point he's also doing the voice.
Oh, okay.
Which is great for Tate Fletcher, because the guy can talk as as put on a hell of a physical performance.
I agree, and I love that character, just a stout, massive Mandalorian. Speaking of stout and massive, Erik, we're wearing some comfortable shirts that are available over at our merch partners at nerdriot.shop. They have some great new Mandalorian-inspired items in their new The Way collection, including the Foundling shirt and a shirt called the Bounty Hunter with designs inspired by the Beskar steels of Mandalore. If you purchase one of these shirts, you can opt to unlock a shout-out on this show, like this one from Mark Bell, R.I.P. Cad Bane, or this one from Jacob Rickard. Best Mandalorian seasons yet. Love everyone at New Rockstars.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Jacob. Now, visit nerdriot.shop to grab one of these great designs, and don't take it off until the finale in 2 months. Be like me. No showers, no close changes, no relationships, no happiness.
All right, Tommy, what is the first question we're asking here?
Is the amnesty program just a sleeper cell for the First Order? Is this like the First Order's origin story, somehow Palpatine returned, finally explained?
Yes, I mean, it looks to be the case there. And I'm interested to see where they go with this for sure. I think it's a very bold and ballsy move by Dave Filoni's team to even touch that third rail of Star Wars fandom, but if anybody can do it, they can.
Yeah.
This whole, that's now a meme now of somehow Palpatine returned from the Rise of Skywalker. We know cloning was involved, but this also seemed to be something they were planning to do from the first season. It's not like he turned. The first episode of The Mandalorian introduced Grogu, and that came out, about a month before The Rise of Skywalker did? So we know that this was always part of the plan. It's just been interesting to see this season of The Mandalorian suddenly take that turn, because the first 2 episodes seemed wholly about the Mandalorian mythology and their culture, their rituals, and their traditions.
But I think that if you look at the first 2 seasons and then the first 2 episodes, one thing they do is they take their time getting to these kind of filling in the gaps of what led to the sequels. It's like the first season, obviously we get some information, we get Grogu, we get the kind of all of the things with what's his name, Werner Herzog's character. It's like we learn that there's something up. Second season, I think, is when we finally see the clone facility, right? And we see all the weird kind of half-made.
Yeah, the pre-Snoke.
Yeah,
the pre-Snoke in the tank.
Pre-Snoke. By the way, kids are smoking pre-Snoke on the streets these days. Guys, don't do it. You're going to get popcorn lung. So anyway, yeah, I think that one thing that they do in order to kind of they're doing this repair slowly. This is a slow, or not repair, but repair sounds cynical, but they're filling in the gaps and making the sequel experience perhaps more of something that makes sense to Star Wars fans with 1,000 little moves rather than just one giant scroll that literally says somehow Palpatine returned,
Or Oscar Isaac just drops the line. Poor Oscar Isaac. That guy did great work in those 3 films.
Yes,
and now,
that's what I meant.
His legacy is reduced to just those 3 words. Again, if anybody can do it, Dave Filoni can. And I think as much as some sections of the fandom don't like the sequel trilogy, I think everyone forgets how much a lot of people did not like the prequel trilogy and how much now we can look back at those movies and appreciate them for all the great things they did as a result of what Filoni did and his team did in Clone Wars. I really think that they can do this here. I think the reason why some people maybe react, it's interesting that people say this is like an Andor episode. I'm like, I don't know if you really got Andor because I find Andor to be very interesting. I understand it's not for everyone, but like the reason I react the way I do to this episode is it just feels so abrupt. Like I understand if they want to jump away to like Jedi mythology and Grogu's origin, his relationship with Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka, but to jump back to the cloning stuff so abruptly, literally we cut to black away from Mando and
Yeah,
Bo-Katan.
you're right. This is like it doesn't even do a like Star Wars fade across like
right.
Yeah, it's just like
they go, but I will say thematically it does still work because we jump to the Mandalorian and then the convert. So the whole episode you're wondering, well, who is the convert of the episode? Well, by the episode's end, it's Bo-Katan for sure. She's been converted, or at least they're welcoming her into the children.
They're
of the
telling
Watch
her
orthodoxy.
she is.
Yeah, you're like, no, you are. You didn't mean to, but you've been baptized, so welcome to the church, baby.
Congratulations.
That wasn't rain. That was someone outside the church sprinkling holy water on you, my friend. But I think there's a way to look at it, the convert theme to Dr. Penn Pershing as well, like in kind of a grim outlook where he was forcibly held down and zapped with the mind flayer, and that in a way, like he was kind of brought in. You're watching it like, oh, is there going to be some turn where Kane turns to him and says, "Hey, actually, I'm working for this cool guy."
Yeah.
He's Palpatine,
Yeah.
or he's Thrawn, or something like that. Like you're going to find out
yeah.
that she's part of it, and she might still be. In fact, it seems like she is when she dials up that thing. That she just wants to cover all of her tracks. Is that how we should look at that moment where she raises the Mind Flayer to 11? That she just doesn't want any other witnesses that can be traced back to Palpatine?
Well,
whatever form he's in right now?
I think the reason you think about that, or the reason that makes sense, is when Pershing gets to that table where the other 3 amnesty program guys are, and then he sees Kane. He's like, "Hey, I didn't expect to see anyone else who worked for Moff Gideon." And the 3 of them were like, "Oh, we had no idea." So obviously she's not being forthcoming with what she did for the Empire, right? So I think she saw that as like, this guy around with full mental power is compromising me, kind of moving in the shadows, trying to set things up.
I am just impressed that Kane is able to get to this position where she can be like a double agent for the New Republic.
Right.
And like obviously when everyone got arrested, when Moff Gideon went down, anybody who was associated with him also got arrested, and that includes Officer Kane, and that includes Dr. Pershing. What is interesting is that she was able to cut this side deal in the time that Dr. Pershing was still being hunted down or processed, and she seemed to have this like a history with the New Republic, and that she is able to do this. Like Mossad didn't hire a former SS,
Right?
Like it's just there's no historical precedent.
It's a really weird turn. Now, do you think that I don't know how space law works, but getting him to ask, getting him to ask that, or intergalactic, or Star Wars law works. Do you think the idea of getting him to ask that robot kind of counselor, like, is it okay? Is it unethical, or am I allowed to do my own research, was a way to get like a warrant to like set him up? Like she needed him to ask that question in an appropriate capacity. Because to me, it was like, why did they show us that scene? Other, if not for that end result, like if that was going to be the end result, showing that scene didn't really seem necessary. So it's like, to me, I'm like, are we getting into this is how you set people up in the New Republic, is you have to get them to start openly saying they might do something bad, and then you have carte blanche to entrap them.
Either the New Republic is extremely smart and sophisticated, or extremely dumb and incompetent, based off of this episode. Yeah. Either they have orchestrated everything Dr. Pershing has been going through in his parole loop, including his TED Talk, including all of his interviews with his droid parole officer, the little one-on-ones he has with his boss in the archive room, all the little side chatter he has in the courtyard of the Amnesty housing, probably that taxi droid who's telling him all these Star Wars Legends Easter eggs of the Skydome Botanical Gardens.
Yes.
the Malastar, like all this stuff. Either they have orchestrated all that and they're listening to everything, every micro expression that he has, looking for tells that he might still be trying to replicate his cloning research, or they are extremely dumb and incompetent and letting someone like this, looping him back into the New Republic culture. This whole amnesty program is insane.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be one thing if several years had passed and that everyone who worked for the Empire was rounded up, arrested, facing their own Nuremberg trials, and this is just something that we did for the ones who really were just following orders. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about ones who just in the previous year, 10 years after the Battle of Endor, are continuing to toe the Empire line and continuing to do horrifying
We're
research.
firing on Navarro to try and steal Grogu with photon cannons.
Right. And are proudly out in the public bragging about the Night of a Thousand Tears and the Purge. It's just, I don't understand the logic of this. Like, it just feels like we're moving right past it. I can't reconcile it. But I'm for now willing to accept that at least within the New Republic, Elia Kane is so sophisticated and that Pershing was targeted for a specific reason.
Yeah.
I just don't know if the New Republic targeted him. It seems like the New Republic had their eye on him.
Right.
And maybe from the moment of his TED Talk, they're like, let's keep an eye on this guy and see if we can lure him back into it. But it seems like the entrapment was something done by Kane to get his research.
Sure.
She held on to that stuff.
Oh,
but don't
yeah.
you think the New Republic would book it back into evidence and that they would have some kind of investigation and wouldn't let her go home with that? That she'd be left alone with this guy? I'm ranting right now, Tommy. Talk me off the ledge. I'm sorry.
I think what you're saying makes sense. I think all will be revealed. You know what I'm about to reveal? A perfect smile. Because good health starts with good habits, Erik. And Quip makes it easy by delivering all the oral care essentials you need to care for that mouth. Their electric toothbrush has timed sonic vibrations that keep going as long as dentists recommend you brush, so you don't even have to worry about it if you're doing enough. You know, for me, I always said my rule was one scrub up top, one scrub down below, and that's it. Well, I've got some Quip toothpaste, Erik. Look at this. Now, if you go to getquip.com/breakroom right now, you get 20% off any Quip water flosser, Quip toothbrush, or Quip's gum starter pack. That's 20% off any water flosser, toothbrush, or gum starter kit at getquip.com/breakroom. That's GETQUIP.com/breakroom. Quip, the Good Habits Company. And we also want to thank TurboTax. Go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can do not taxes. Show your eyes things that are not taxes. Unpack a moving box of not taxes. Taste not taxes. Sing not taxes a lullaby. Hope not taxes sleeps through the night. Grab a saddle and ride not taxes into the sunset. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can relax. Feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit TurboTax. Full service products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes required. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Erik.
Tommy.
Let me get back to the episode.
Yeah.
Who the fet do we think attacked Bo-Katan? Are you thinking Thrawn? Am I thinking Thrawn? Are we going Thrawn here?
I hope it's Thrawn. In fact, I would have loved to have spent more time in this episode. I think structurally, am I just overthinking it that maybe they had a whole Pershing episode and then when they were looking at it in the edit, they're like, I think viewers might be a little torn if we just spend an entire episode in this Pershing plot. Let's bumper it and end it with some great Mando action that undeniably people will be happy at the beginning and then happy at the end.
I think so. I don't think that the goodwill that was met with Mando and Grogu and Luke and Ahsoka appearing in Boba Fett would be reciprocated when those beloved characters were then taken out of an entire episode of Mandalorian. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that door opens one way.
I think it's either Moff Gideon if he did actually escape, because there was that line later in the episode where they're like, "Oh, is he taking the Mind Flayer? I heard he escaped." It's either Moff Gideon gathering his resources. I think it'd be a little soon for that to happen, or it's Thrawn. because she said she had ripped off or skugged off a couple Imperial warlords.
Yeah.
But this one seemed like personal. The fact that they bombed her home castle.
Yeah,
and the
I
fact
mean,
that it was such a fleet. She was surprised. She's like, no Imperial warlord has that big of a fleet right now, except Thrawn. I think Thrawn was the one behind this.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And so what do we think is Bo-Katan's next move? How long do you think she's going to stay with the covert? I think now that she knows that Din, I'm sorry to ask you a question, then immediately answer it, but that's just how I do things here on Tommy Talks. I feel like now that she knows Din did not see the Mythosaur, she is currently enacting a plan to take over as the ruler of Mandalore and the Mandalorians. So I don't think that any conversion that is happening here is authentic or long-standing. I think it's probably she'll stay there as long as she needs to formulate a plan or maybe get some communications out to some allies.
Yeah. You know what this is? She is infiltrating the cult right now. She's not a true believer in this batshit orthodoxy.
Right.
She is essentially Daniel Plainview and There Will Be Blood infiltrating Eli's church just to get oil drilling rights on that land. That's all she wants. She doesn't drink the Kool-Aid. She doesn't care.
She drinks the milkshakes.
She knows that he is a false prophet. Admit it, you are a false prophet. And then she's going to drink their milkshake. Of all that fluid, she's gonna get a long straw and drink all the living waters. Because our girl Bo-Katan is thirsty. She's thirsty.
She is thirsty. Ooh, and I'm thirsty for her. Now, do we think Moff Gideon escaped with Elia Kane's help? Is he still at large? Or did Elia Kane fry his brain the way she zapped Pershing?
Yeah, I don't... Ooh, to think that she actually turned in her... Like... Because I go back and forth. Yes, it'd be one thing if we get Giancarlo Esposito back in here, and I think it would just be kind of replaying season 1 and season 2 if Giancarlo Esposito just comes back and is regathered his resources. It would make him the ultimate big bad of the series.
Right.
My hope is that Giancarlo Esposito is playing Professor X right now for the MCU, and he's busy. He's got no time to appear on Star Wars at the same time, and that they introduce Thrawn as a big bad or some part of the Mandalorian cult ideology as the villain of the series. Yeah, that would be my hope. However, I also think that it'd be more interesting. I mean, if Elia Kane zapped Moff Gideon and brought him to the Mind Flayer, that would really elevate her status as a villain right now.
I don't know. She's pretty evil. I mean, the last 5 minutes of that sequence when she turns on him, just her eyes, the way she's looking at him with so much like contempt and like, it doesn't look like there's any remorse at all, really. I mean, she kind of is like, eh.
Can I speak candidly?
Yes.
I think all the actors that they bring on these shows definitely bring something to the table. I'm really excited for them and to see their futures. When people compare this to Andor, the reason why that comparison falls apart is when every episode of Mandor, every actor they hired on that show, Diego Luna, Stellan Skarsgård, Fiona Shaw, we were watching like Shakespearean level actors just have fascinating dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't know if I needed to sit with these two actors for 36 minutes of the episode. I didn't find them that compelling. Look, I think Katie O'Brien is an amazing performer. I think some of the stunt work she can do, I think the physical work she can do is great. They put her in this very restrained role, and I think she was making some interesting acting choices. But overall, I didn't like seeing spycraft from these two characters.
Yeah, it feels like we have enough spycraft already in the Disney Plus Star Wars show, so it's like adding a spycraft element to what is kind of the ultimate space western show right now is like, all right, well, I agree. I also think I agree. Like, I think the direction for her when she was supposed to be playing like reformed amnesty participant was a lot of like, I won't allow myself to really feel anything. Like, I'm just like, hey, okay, here's some biscuits. I'm friendly, but also like,
I mean, she was kind of honeypotting him, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was a bit of a honeypot maneuver where she's like, I'll bring you your biscuits. Hey, come find me in the courtyard. Yeah, it was me who gave you those biscuits. And like, I just didn't really buy it from this. And I don't really blame the actor so much as I blame the writing. I just think the character was written to be so weird on what exact. And yes, there's some mystery to the character. But then once we find out what the character's real intentions are, it doesn't line up with like the logic of the world and what we saw them do throughout the episode.
Yeah.
It's just either again, the New Republic is either insanely conspiratorial and 4D chessing all of this in a way that doesn't really seem realistic, or they're just incredibly stupid that also seems to be, I mean, I guess maybe that's the agenda of all this, is just paint the New Republic as just like so easily subverted by any kind of interest, and that's why the First Order was able to rise.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, we're talking it. You were talking around it, but it's like, yeah. I mean, why else was the Empire basically able to return with new emblems and a new name? You know, it's like how it's the don't learn from your past, doomed to repeat it. But it's like they were doomed to repeat it so quickly. It was like
and they did have that line of like, oh, they're dismantling the military,
decommissioning,
they're
decommissioning
rebellion, the military, right? Which we know was the case. I mean, that was why Leia kind of broke off in the political factions. I just like it. We just saw that era of the New Republic from just such an interesting angle that I don't. It was not like when we saw the Imperial era from Andor's angle. We saw it from almost this like Game of Thrones level tiered system, or The Wire, where you see the top level brass who are doing spycraft. We see the grunts in the trenches who are pulling off these heists. We see the Imperial investigators. We got a sense of why the Empire was doing what it was doing and how cruel and inhumane it was. Here we're just seeing it from this one kind of closed off place.
Yeah.
Where it feels like we're watching 1984 a little bit, where a character is like, he meets someone, but he doesn't know if it's like a spy who he can trust. Also, it'd be one thing if like we were excited for Pershing to be successful, but like he's also a guy who's like a cloner who was experimenting on Grogu to bring about Snoke. Like there's just so many things that we're not rooting for in this equation that it's kind of hard to just like know who we're rooting for right now.
Yes.
And it's not like in Andor where we're watching a bunch of bad characters do bad things, or watching The Last of Us like morally compromised characters, because at least in those situations we can kind of like say, well, if I were in that situation, I would do this. When I watch this episode, I'm like, if I were in that situation, I would be one of the guys in the courtyard just continuing to talk about biscuits the whole episode.
Exactly. I'm with you. I'd just be with you eating proton fizzes, Eric. That's it. Just you and me holding hands, walking through Coruscant, watching that magician guy make a bird come out of his handkerchief.
Hey, we saw that courtyard before, right? Didn't Obi-Wan and Satine go on a date in that courtyard?
That's what
I know. I heard the Resistance music. They turned the March of the Resistance theme into like a carnival march, like which that was fun. The Easter eggs on this episode were on point.
Yes.
I'll give you that. The
We're gonna get
Lucasfilm
those.
team, mwah. Yeah, I'm working on that. Hopefully that will be able to come out tomorrow. That will be the plan. But this is a fun episode, at least to pull apart from that angle. So we'll leave it there for this episode of Wookieeleaks. Hey, I know I was hard on this episode, but you know what? I love everything that Dave Filoni is doing with Star Wars, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm excited to see where he's going, and I'm happy for him to take this hard task of trying to make sense of the logic of the sequel trilogy, at least in the later installments of the sequel trilogy. And again, my Easter egg breakdown is coming tomorrow. You can follow me at EA Voss. You can follow Tommy at Tommy Bechtold. We'll be back next week to react to episode 4. And of course, the break room is live every day on New Rockstars at 3 p.m. And hey, if you don't mind, please subscribe to the deep dive. This week, we're going to be diving into John Wick. It's a really fun video. Follow New Rockstars, subscribe to Wookieeleaks wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for watching, and this
is the way.
That's how Grogu says it.